Hey guys, Krupp Miniatures back at it with another video, and today I'm going to be showcasing my paper Napoleonic army, an easy way to create massive Napoleonic battles on the tabletop. Of course, this is my own system. I completely made this my own. Nobody else has helped me create this or do any of the work. However, I just want to show this to you guys. I was considering not showing you guys, but I decided to actually do this, and so I'd like to just show my paper Napoleonic army and system. And sorry for the shaky camera because I'm going to have to hold it for most of this video. However, I would just like to show you guys how this works. So don't want to bore you with a long intro. Taking a look at this, this is what the game looks like. So basically, we've got all of these four-man units. So you can see we've got like this line separating those units and these lines in between units. So each unit is going to be, each standard line infantry unit is going to be 4 bases. And so it'll have the name. We'll use the Old Guard, for example. We have the name, the nation's flag, and then all of their stats. So we have their shooting stat, which is their shooting damage, or like what you need to roll up. So, and then we have the melee, the defense, the movement, the range, the morale, and the lives. So each standard line infantry unit will have 3 lives. Sorry about the my voice. I have a lot of allergies right now. So I do them in groups of 4, regiments of 4, battalions of 4, however you want to say, because then you can make them into a square. So a fresh Old Guard unit would have 12 lives, 3 lives per base. So you would roll 12 dice. Their shooting stat is on the 3, and so you roll 12 on the 3 up. And so whatever is 3, 4, 5, or 6 is a hit. And it's the same kind of thing with melee, except for, of course, you have to be point blank to hit. Melee being a 4 up, so a 4, 5, or 6 would hit. Next, we'll take a look at the defense. So let's say we've got an Old Guard unit up against this Young Guard unit. So the Old Guard would shoot, so they'd have their 12 shots originally, and they'd shoot it, and let's just say they got 7 hits. So then the Young Guards, the people receiving the hits, will roll 7 dice on their defense stat. So the defense stat is like their save. So this person, this unit will roll 7 4-ups as their saves. And so any 4, 5s, or 6s, they don't take that hit. So any 1s, 2s, or 3s, they will take that many wounds. And they can either choose to spread them out, which allows you to try and continue to be able to form square in the future, or you can remove bases in an attempt to allow for someone else to move into their slot. This comes into a massive part of the game in which units cannot shoot through each other, meaning that like you might want to remove a base, that way you can put a fresh unit in its place. And of course, any wounds that have been taken will reduce the amount of lives, which will reduce the amount of shots and stuff like that, with the shots being the same for melee. So just taking a look, I have gone extreme on this. I have made a ton of units. So you can see this is all just French infantry. All of this right here, you can see French infantry all the way there. So there's different types of infantry with different stats. So of course you can create whatever you want, and if you'd like, I could send or attach a document with my basically I made these in a PowerPoint presentation, And then like with using the box tools and flags and typing and everything like that. But for my game, I have units of Dutch Grenadiers, 1 unit of Dutch Grenadiers, 1 unit of Imperial Marines, 2 units of Old Guard, 2 units of Young Guard, 2 units of Grenadiers, 2 units of Swiss Foot, 2 units of Polish Legion, and then I have 8 units of standard line infantry. These are the standard base stats. Talking on the other stats, we will get to soon. We've got some more line infantry here. Then we'll have some militia units. You can notice that these units come in 3s. So for militia units, skirmishing infantry units, and armed citizenry units, they come in groups of 3. They do have 4 lives on the armed citizenry and the militia, and 2 lives on the skirmishing infantry. So these are different outliers for sure. The militia and skirmishing infantry and armed citizenry are made in 3 units. That way they do not have the ability to form square, and that way it's not confusing on that matter. However, their plus is that they come in tighter groups, which I know might not be historical in the slightest. However, that's just a downside of making it so that they can't form square. So they will just have worse stats, and each unit will have different stats depending on how they fought historically. And then we'll get to skirmishing infantry. They also have a stat or an ability where once per game, they can deploy pikes, and so they will, once they're like all lined up, we'll say like this, then they can put pikes down. So like you can use whatever you want, but I just take like risk pieces and I just put them all throughout here. Like you deploy it all in front of the unit. It can only do this once per game, and it can't shoot that turn. And no cavalry or infantry can walk through it. Anything will die, so they have to go around it. Just a nice little move. You could also include the main thing that I'm thinking about doing is adding 1 more unit, because this is getting to be unreasonable, of Engineer of the Guard, in which they could use the same ability. However, that's just rambling on. We also have armed citizenry. Here's where I'll explain the other stats. So we've got the movement is just move is the movement. Range is the range. These are just all in inches. And then morale is going to be the morale of the unit, of course. So this unit, armed citizenry units and militia units still have 12. They just have 3 bases because they have 4 lives instead of the standard 3. So a unit of 12 armed citizenry, this is where the morale comes into play. So whenever this unit has at the beginning of every single turn of the French, they will take a morale check on all units that need to. So the armed citizenry units are the worst units at this. This is the weakest unit in the game. So the armed citizenry will take the morale check by seeing, okay, so let's pretend that this unit is removed. So then we have 8 lives left on a 12-man unit, which means that they've lost 4 lives. So, of course, 4, and then we subtract the 2 from it, and that leaves us with 2, of course. And so that is however many chances on a die, on a 6-sided die. This game is all played on 6 sides right now. I'm thinking about making it 10 in the future. So any number on the die, we need to include 2 number, because 4 minus 2 is equals 2, of course. And so they need 2 numbers that will make it run. So 2 numbers would be a 5 and a 6. Remember, because we always play on ups this game. Number and up. So it would be 2 numbers, right? And so the 2 numbers for this, running away, so that means we need to reserve 2 numbers on the die that makes it so that the unit runs away. And so a unit will have 2 chances on a 6-sided die, which means that it has to be 2 chances would be a 5 and a 6. If number of hits taken minus the morale is 3. Then they need 3 spots reserved. So that would be a 4, 5, and 6 they run. Sorry about the cut there. I had a little interruption. Okay, so that is the morale rules explained. If you have any questions, you can ask down below. But next, let's go into the next unit type. We have cavalry. So you can see the cavalry have their own different size base. So you can see this is the cavalry here. The French have the 3 normal cav types, which is heavy cav, dragoons, and hussars. Those are the normal types that come with every army, at least up to this point. So the heavy cav is kind of the best cav. It is a little bit slower than the normal cav. However, it is the heaviest hitting, and also has some pretty good defense. Probably the best cav in the game. Next, we have the dragoons, who are a bit slower and everything, but they also they have guns. Also, you notice that cav units come in lives of 9. So they have 3 bases per unit. The dragoons, they're a bit weaker. However, they get to shoot a volley on their 5 before they enter combat. Or if you just want to keep them out of combat, they have a 6-inch range, and you can just get them to do some pretty okay, kind of crappy fire. Next is hussars. Hussars are just kind of the standard, not great. Still not as good as dragoons, but, well, they have a little bit worse morale. They don't have the shooting. But, you know, they're just standard light sword cav. They do have a little bit of a faster movement, though. And then next is specialty to the French is chasseur à cheval, the famous French cav. They are kind of just dragoons, but they are slower. They have the worst morale, they are faster, they have the worst morale, and they have worse shooting. And then finally we have French Lancer cav, who is only available. I am playing this game currently with only Russians and Austrians. I'm playing a French force versus a combined Russian-Austrian force. However, the Lancer cav have worse melee and just worse pretty much overall, except for when they are first going into melee. So on the charge, they have a 2 in melee. So their first turn in the charge, they have the best hit in the entire game on a 2. They are the only people who hit on a 2, and they hit like trucks on the first turn, but then they're pretty much sentenced to death if they don't eliminate the enemy on the charge. And then finally, the last type of units, we have artillery. So we have 4 different types of artillery. So we have the 3 standard types for every nation: foot artillery, horse artillery, and howitzer batteries. Foot artillery is just slow moving, hits on the 5, and basically for artillery, for any type of artillery, you roll the die for the shooting, of course, and they don't have any melee, so if they get into melee, then they don't do anything, actually. But they hit on the 5s, of course, this unit, at least of foot artillery. And so a 5 up, or so a 5 or a 6 would be a hit, but that results in 3 wounds. So if I roll a 5 or a 6 on, I'm rolling for this unit, I get a 5. Then my opponent will roll 3 wound saves. So if we have the foot artillery, I roll a 5 against an armed citizenry unit, then they have to roll 3 saves, because it's artillery, on their save, which is their defense stat. So 3 on the 5. And so any 5s or 6s, so 5 ups, They would not take a life. Any 1s, 2s, 3s, or 4s, they would take a wound, which means remove a life. And of course, that would mean less shots for them next turn. Next, we have horse artillery, same deal as foot artillery, but it has an 8-inch move, so it's very mobile. Next, we have howitzers. They are special, as in they're the only units in the game that can shoot over units. So like I said earlier, like a unit standing behind another unit can't shoot. Unless like the base is like one of the bases of like the entire unit. Like if there's one base of 4 that's sticking out and can completely see, then that can shoot, but nothing else. So the howitzers are different. They can shoot over enemies. However, they are also slow, and their shooting is worse to represent howitzers having a bit worse accuracy overall. Of course, it's not that much of a difference, so you could change that if you wanted, but that's just how I run it. And finally, we have the Grand Battery, exclusive to the French. And while Grand Battery was most known for being a heavy artillery unit that just dealt more damage, instead of changing it from like 3 to 4 wounds on the hit, I decided to change the shooting to a 4. And I changed the movement and range. The range is now the longest range. The movement is now the slowest movement. So it's pretty much an immobile, long-range artillery that hits on the 4. So that means they have a 50-50 chance of inflicting 3 wounds every turn. Sorry for the shakiness. Next, we move on to the Austrians. The Austrians have pretty much the exact same thing. They have the Austrian Ulan Lancers, who have the same rules as the French Lancer Cav. They have the 3 normal types of Cav. Note that the Allied coalition forces of Austria and Russia have split their armies about 50-50, with the odd numbers, like extra units, going to Russia. So Austria is technically the smallest, only by a little bit, to Russia. And so they just kind of have the same units pretty much, except for, actually they don't. They've got their specialty units, so their elite units. They've got Hungarian and German grenadiers. And then their standard unit, they've got 2 units of German Fusiliers, 2 units of Hungarian Fusiliers, and 3 units of line infantry. So their standard line infantry, being the Hungarian and German Fusiliers, is just a little bit better than the norm, which makes them quite a bit better. I'd also like to note that morale of a dash means that they do not have to take morale checks. Also, you'll notice that there is a major general at the top. I just gave 1 major general to every army. In previous versions, I had multiple generals, but that just became kind of annoying. So now I just have 1 for every army, and I just say any unit within 10 inches of the general doesn't have to take any morale checks. It also should be noted that any unit that runs, if a morale check, any unit that runs can come back the next turn on the roll of a 6. Otherwise, they are just gone. And if they fail their morale checks, then they face the opposite direction that they were facing, so the opposite direction of the enemy at least, and then they move double their speed in that direction. So a normal infantry unit would move 6 inches backwards, and you can denote them running away by facing their flag the other way. So, like this would be running away. Yes, okay. So, sorry about the shakiness there. Next, we have the Russians, who have their specialty, some of the specialty units as Cossack cavalry. They're just really good cav. They're pretty good. They're very similar to Hussars, except for the fact that they don't have to take morale checks. That's pretty much it. Foot artillery, they have just the standard types, and then they have 20-pounder unicorn, 1 unit of 20-pounder unicorn battery, which has the same exact stats as the Grand Battery. Finally, we have the main core of the army. We've got some skirmishing infantry here, armed citizenry, militia, and then we've got the main group of units. Sorry about the shadow here. I'm getting close to my light. So for the units, for their elite units, they've got 2 units of Lifeguard Foot, which is a really good unit. They've got 1 unit of Pavlovsk Grenadiers, and then they've got 7 units of line infantry and 1 unit of a grenadier company. So yeah, that is the armies. That's the paper game. So now, just want to talk a bit more. So regarding the square formation, at least, I think that's the last thing I have to cover. Actually, grenades. I will cover grenades now. I know this video is getting long. So grenades are going to be for any grenadier unit. They can throw grenades on the... I'm sorry, I might get this wrong and make it overpowered by accident. But it's on the 5-up. If they get a hit, then they roll 2 dice for the wounds. So it's like artillery, but it's on the 5. The unit has to be within 4 inches, so 4-inch range on the 5-up, and then you just roll 2 wounds for every roll. So it's kind of like artillery, but you have to be super close, and it's only 2 dice. And then finally, we have square. So units can form square. I'll just move some guys out of the way right now. So we'll just use this unit of Lifeguard Foot. I want to make sure that you guys can see this. So a unit will be able to form square like that whenever they want. However, the next turn, when they're in square, they can only shoot with 2 of their bases. So they can choose, if these 2 units each have 1 life, they can just choose these 2 units to shoot. However, it does cut the effectiveness of the unit, making it so that people just don't always form square. And then no matter if there's enemies all completely surrounding them, only 2 units can shoot. And then also, whenever unforming square, they can't move that turn. So basically, the downside is that they you can only shoot with half your units, and also the movement out of square and stuff like that. However, what square does is it makes it so that any cav units on the melee hit on 6s. So it pretty much just makes cav completely useless against a squared up unit. Of course, some units like militia and armed citizenry and skirmish infantry cannot form square, though. So that's kind of the main basis of square. So yeah, I am sure I might have forgot something, and I am not sure if I'll ever publish another video on this topic. However, I just want to get this out there because I find it a lot of fun to have these paper games because they're quick, they're easy to make, and you can have massive miniature tabletop battles with these paper games. It is super easy to recreate a massive engagement using miniature game rules. So like complex rule set with massive engagements. It sounds like the dream of a miniature wargamer. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.